Alright guys, here we are again in our Week 4 folder, and let's take a look at Lab 1.4 and work through it together. In Lab 1.4, Sprites in Action, we're going to be learning how to animate sprites, or images, inside of Snap. So the first thing we'll need to do is go to Snap and learn how to find costumes. We are going to be finding two different costumes, or sprites, for a dog, and then we're going to make that dog walk. First in place, and then from left to right using our arrow keys. So let's get started. Alright, heading into Snap. The first thing we need to do is take this plain sprite here that just looks like a little arrow and make it look like a dog that we can animate. So come up here and click on this little paper icon, then go into Costumes. This Costumes window is quite small and a little bit hard to sort through, so I like to grab it from the bottom right hand corner and make it a little bit bigger. Now we're looking for a dog, and all of our sprites are in an alphabetical list, so I'm going to scroll down to the D's, past the dinosaurs, until I find dog 2A and dog 2B. We don't really need dog 2C, though it matches. We don't really need this confused pose. So simply click on dog 2A and then import. Also click on dog 2B and import. And then you can cancel out of this window. And you'll see we have our Scripts tab over here. We haven't written any scripts yet, but we also have our Costumes tab. Inside of our Costumes tab, we have dog 2A and dog 2B. And even if I just click on these back and forth, you can see it's almost like an animation to make our dog walk. But now, let's write some code to do this. The first piece of code that Lab 1.4 asks you to write is very simple. They simply want us to take out a when space key pressed block and use that to make us play a walk-in-place animation for our dog. So now we go to Looks, and we bring out a Next Costume block. And if I hold down the spacebar, I get a very quick little walk animation, or I can tap spacebar and get a similar effect. Next, let's make our dog actually walk left to right and play this animation at the same time. And if you want, you can right-click with the mouse or control-click with your keyboard and hit Duplicate, because we're actually going to need very similar blocks here. Instead of when space key, let's change this to when right arrow, so we can start our walking right code. And before we switch into our next costume, let's make sure that our dog will be facing the right direction. So I'll bring out point direction 90. Point direction 90 means that our dog will be facing to the right hand side of the stage. And then I need it to actually start moving. So I'll bring out a move 10 steps, and I'm actually going to punch this up to 20 to get our dog moving a little bit faster. And let's see how this works. Holding down the arrow key, you can see my dog walks to the right hand side of the screen. One thing to keep in mind is when you're practicing and learning, you can definitely lose your sprite, like I just made my dog walk off the screen. How do I get it back so I can keep working on it? The easiest way is to right-click or control-click on the sprite down here and simply click on Show, and that will bring your dog back onto the stage. Now, if I want to get my dog walking to the left, it's really very easy. If I already have this code done, I can right or control-click and duplicate, change the when right arrow to left arrow, change the point direction 90 to negative 90, and then I can leave the move 20 positive, because if I'm facing to the left, then I will move positively in that direction. Keeping next costume is just fine, and let's see what happens. Well, my dog walks upside down, and that looks a little bit funny. So how can we fix that? To the left of the icon that represents your sprite, there's 3 different types of arrows. Right now this top arrow is selected, meaning that our dog can turn around and rotate in any direction. If we switch to this middle one, he can only face left or right, but he can't turn upside down. So this is perfect for what we want right now. We have our dog walking left and right, and not flipping upside down like Spider Dog. Alright, so these are the first couple steps of Lab 1.4, but let's see what else is in store. In Part 2, Here There Be Dragons, they're asking us to use 2 new sprites to represent a dragon, and program it so that when we press the F key, the dragon will start breathing fire for a few seconds, and then switch back to its normal costume where it's not breathing fire. Now, I like to usually do this in a new project, but you can just bring the dragon into the project that you have started with the dog, or if you do start a new project like I do, make sure that you take a minute to save your first project in Snap and keep your dog. So in my new project, again, I have my plain boring sprite, and the first step to fixing that is clicking on my paper and going into the costumes. Once again, making this larger, and again, finding in the Ds a dragon. Not just any dragon, but Dragon 1A and Dragon 1B. Yes, there's two Dragon 1Bs. Just take the two that look identical. This one has kind of a different green color. So, I'm going to import the only Dragon 1A, and I'm going to import the second Dragon 1B. And then I'm going to cancel this, and again you can see my two sprites right here in my Costumes tab. But now it's time to attach some code that's going to make these work the way that we want them to. So step one is to get the dragon breathing fire. So I'm going to go to Control and bring out a when space key pressed. But remember, we are programming our fire breathing to be on the F key. So I change that to F. And then let's go to Looks and use Switch to Costume this time instead of Next Costume. If we just use Next Costume, it will create some problems for us. So we want to be more specific now. So we will switch to Costume Dragon 1B, which is the one where he's breathing fire, when we press the F key. Alright, that's great. But it's supposed to only breathe fire for a second or two, and then switch back. And right now we're just kind of stuck, and pressing F again won't even fix it. So if I bring out a new switch to costume, and tell it to switch back to Dragon 1A after Dragon 1B, that should work, right? Well, not really. It switched back, but now I'm still hitting F, and it looks like nothing's happening. What's actually happening is, it is doing this code, but it's doing it so fast that you can't even see it happen, which might as well not be doing it at all. So we need to slow this down at least a little bit. I'm going to go to Control and bring out a wait block. If I put this wait 1 second in between here, now he'll breathe fire for 1 second, and then switch back to his normal costume. You can determine how long this breathes fire by changing this number. So if I change it to 3 seconds, we'll breathe fire a little bit longer, or 0.5 seconds, a little bit quicker. So I'll put this at 2 seconds, but you can make your own determination there. Alright, let's see what else Lab 1.4 has for us. Now it says that it wants the dragon to attack the mouse pointer when the F key is pressed, meaning that the dragon goes from its normal costume and then chases to the location of the mouse pointer, then breathes fire at it, and then goes back to its normal costume. So let's do that real quick. If I need my dragon to look at and move towards the mouse pointer, I'm definitely going into the Motion tab. Under Motion, I'm going to bring out first Point Towards, and I'm going to make that the first thing that happens when I press F. I need to choose from the drop-down the mouse pointer, so the dragon will look for the mouse pointer and point towards it. You'll notice my dragon has flipped upside down. I'm going to click the same arrow that I clicked for my dog, and now he can turn from left to right, but he won't flip upside down. And I think that's probably better. But now I want him to actually move towards the mouse pointer. So, I'm going to use a glide block. I'll put this glide block right below the point towards, but right now he's only programmed to glide for 1 second to a specific location, which is the center of the screen, and that's not going to make a whole lot of difference. Not really what we want yet. So how do we get him to find and chase the mouse pointer? It's actually very easy if we go into our light blue sensing tab. Over here, you'll find mouse X and mouse Y. These are already programmed to track where the mouse is in the game. So if I put mouse X in the X slot and mouse Y in the Y slot, and try this again, the dragon will pretty quickly move towards my mouse pointer, breathe fire, and then go back to normal. So this is a fun but simple little player-controlled character that we've created. Lab 1.4 has just a few more things to do. On to part 3, Run Away! Here we're going to add another sprite to our program, and this time you can choose any costume that you want. Then we're going to write a script that will make the new sprite point away from the dragon and move away as well. First, we'll program it to run away when we press the R key, and then we'll program it to run away on its own when the dragon attacks. Now, before I create my next sprite, I'm actually going to go up here and change the name of my dragon sprite. I'm going to change this from Sprite to Dragon. Simple enough. Then I'm going to click on this button here, which is the Add New Turtle Sprite button. I could explain why it's called the turtle, but we'll save that for another day. Right now, let's just go take this turtle, or boring arrow, and find a better costume for it. So back to my paper, and costumes. You can pick whatever you want for this. Personally, I kind of like using this witch sprite. It's almost Halloween, and a witch can fly on the broom and the dragon can fly. It just kind of works for me. So I've got my new sprite in here, and we want her to run away from the dragon. So let's go into our scripts and make that happen. First, they want us to program this on the R key. So I'll bring out the when space key pressed and change it to when R key pressed. Then if I want her to face away from the dragon, I'll bring out a point towards, and I'll just tell her to point towards the center instead of at the dragon. Next, I want her to glide somewhere. For now, I'm going to make this a random location. So that means going to our green operators category and bringing out two pick random blocks and putting them in the X and Y locations. Next, I need to give these some boundaries. So right now, she'll pick a random location between 1 and 10, which is a pretty small area. Oh, and she could go upside down, so let's click this little left-right arrow over here. I want to make the area that she can run away in bigger, but without her disappearing off the screen. So remember that my stage is about 500 units wide and 360 units tall, meaning that the far right side of the stage is positive 250 and the left side negative 250, the top positive 180, and the bottom negative 180. So in the X, I will say that she can move from negative 250 to positive 250, and in the Y, she can move from negative 180 to positive 180. And now, when I press the R key, she can run anywhere on the stage without disappearing. So at this point, I can press F and the dragon will chase after her, and then I can press R and she will run away. But now, instead of making the witch player controlled, let's make this something that's almost like a very basic AI. She will know when she is supposed to run away from the dragon. So, I'm going to detach the when R key pressed and get rid of that. We don't need it. Back into control. Now, I want a blank when block. So just when and this empty space here. Then I want her to sense something. I want her to sense when she's touching the dragon. So the very first block in the sensing category is touching. If I bring this in here, I can now click on the drop down, and on mine, the last option is dragon. This shows up as dragon because I named my dragon sprite dragon. If you did not rename your sprite, you might have sprite 1 and sprite 2, or sprite and sprite 1, and you might need to say that when touching sprite, run away. But that's going to be up to whatever you named the dragon. The point is, she runs away from whatever the dragon sprite is named. So let's see how that works. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now keep in mind guys, if you're having fun with this, you can take this above and beyond. You can add sound effects into your game. You can make the stage bigger, add your own backgrounds, add your own animation or artwork. So here's an example of what it could look like if you take it just a little bit further. So it's still a pretty basic game, but for only a few days in game design, to be programming something like this is pretty cool in my opinion. Also keep in mind when it comes to animation, you can improve your animations drastically by adding more frames. So you can see in this Mega Man X example here, Mega Man has a lot more frames than your dog does. Your dog had only 2. Mega Man here has, well, let's go check. From X1 down to X13, we have 13 frames in our Mega Man animation, which makes this a lot smoother and more dynamic. So you don't have to create anything like this, but I just want you to know that it's possible, and you might experiment with it if you find this kind of thing interesting. But the very last thing that you have to do today is when you finish your code on your dragon and your witch, go up to your little piece of paper. First, let's go to Save As, give this a name, and then hit Save. Then, Let's go to Save As one more time. Make sure you have your project selected, and then click Share. Don't forget to hit Yes, and then you can just hit Cancel. After you've shared it, go up here and take this long link that you've created and copy and paste it into the comments so that I can see what work you've gotten done today. Remember, if you've hit the share button and done this right, you should see a much longer URL that includes something like username equals and your username, and project name equals and the name of your project. If you still see a very short URL that doesn't include the username and project name, that means that you must have made a mistake somewhere when trying to share it. You should go back and try it again. Alright guys, good luck with everything, work hard. If you need help, send me a message or visit me during office hours.